look, people have a right to know if there's a problem in those taxes before they decide who our nominee is going to be.
What kind of problem would you envision? Either the low rate that he's paying, if that's the case, or the fact that he doesn't give as much to charity or veterans groups or whatever? What?
Well, you've gone through a good list there. One, we could find he doesn't have anywhere near as much income as we might think he would have with a $10 billion net worth, or he doesn't pay any taxes, or he pays very, very low taxes.
Well, are you saying that you think he's worth significantly less than that?
I don't know. I'm just saying the fact that he is so aggressive in avoiding any discussion of his taxes, and is not willing to put them out so far, suggests that there's something in there he doesn't want us to see.
All right. Well, we don't know, do we? We do know this, that Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz have released tax forms, some of them going back quite a few years, but only the first 2 pages of those forms. In other words, if you're looking for a lot of headed pages and detailed works on their investments, et cetera, you're not going to find it there, which could be a good thing if you're Donald Trump. In other words, you get the broad-based headlines, but you don't really go into the nitty-gritty. Tax attorney Robert Wood still says that Donald Trump shouldn't do it regardless. Why not, Robert?
Well, you had a good point, of course, Neil, that the first 2 pages that were released by Mr. Rubio and Senator Cruz, the 2 senators, didn't tell us very much. And so, in a sense, you're right that Mr. Trump could release just basic details, but they're still not going to. They're still going to have some of the problems that apparently he's worried about, and those would be if he's under audit. The IRS, I think, has said, and of course they're right, he's not prohibited from releasing them, but he's not under any legal requirement to release anything. And I think most tax advisors think that if he is under audit, as he says, that releasing tax forms would be a mistake. I mean, that's not a political issue. It's simply a tax issue.
Yeah, got you. And of course, the IRS would take offense at you releasing this before they got a chance to look at it, right?
I don't think they care. I mean,
okay.
I assume that if there is an audit every year, as he has said, and there's been speculation whether that's possible, is it true? It is unusual to have 12 years in a row. It's not impossible. It's also, I think, in the course of an audit, it's very common to have many years open. Typically 3, I suppose, would be the most normal, but in business enterprises, sometimes 5 and 6 years can be open at one time.
You know, Robert, when you talk about, there's a lot of people say, well, he's not worth as much as people think. I mean, that would not come through on a form, right? I mean, the income that you generated through whether it's salary or royalties or what have you, but there'd be no way for you to figure out how much a person's worth based on that return, right? Especially a 2-page one.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, bear in mind too that, and I think Mr. Trump has sort of distanced himself from the tax forms, in a sense, commenting or tweeting, I think, that his Federal Election Commission forms are complete and that tax returns aren't going to show anything about his actual income. Which is probably overstated, but it is true that if he has highly appreciating and appreciated assets, if he hasn't sold them, then they're not going to show up as tax or as gain. So if he buys something for $1 million, it's worth $100 million
right.
After a few years. That's unappreciated gain. It's not taxable.
Yeah, and even when it comes to capital gains and dividends and all, they're taxed at a lower rate. And as Mitt Romney found out, as Mike Huckabee found out, when you release such forms, people go through that with a fine-tooth comb, and you're not exactly rewarded for your transparency.
No, clearly not. And in terms of any existing audit, again, I think the tax commentators are uniform in saying that from a tax viewpoint, as opposed to a political viewpoint, Trump shouldn't release anything. But in politics, obviously, many rules are being broken now. Yeah. And Mr. Trump is kind of the uncandidate, and he seems to get away with it. He could probably say to people, I'm not going to release anything, that's that. And unlike Mr. Romney, Mr. Trump could probably get away with it.
Yeah, and Donald Trump embraces his wealth, whereas you could argue that Romney had a problem with that. But be that as it may, there's nothing that compels him. It's a recent historical phenomenon where candidates release returns. So we'll see where this goes. Robert Wood, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.